Think about how many times you've seen women with a butterfly tattoo, small, delicate, often on their shoulder, hip, or lower back. Now imagine if this seemingly obvious and innocent symbol were, in fact, a psychological mark loaded with meanings far deeper than just beauty or freedom. What if I told you that behind this seemingly harmless choice lies a silent code, an almost unconscious signal that refers directly to female behavior within the logic of the carousel? What you're about to discover in this video will change the way you see not only tattoos, but also what psychology reveals about the hidden intentions of many women. And most importantly, the final revelation I'll bring later is the most powerful. Before we continue, subscribe to the Black Pill Femme channel. If you like this video, leave a like, comment, and share it. What you will hear here is content that you will hardly find elsewhere, as it goes far beyond traditional narratives. I promise that by the end, surprising revelations will be made, and you will have a critical view that will provoke deep reflection on how women communicate silently through seemingly commonplace symbols. Modern psychology understands that no symbol is chosen by chance. Carl Jung already argued that archetypes manifest themselves through images and signs that we carry with us. The butterfly, in this sense, is not just a pretty drawing. It represents transformation, metamorphosis, and the shedding of one form to assume another. At first, it may seem like something positive, but when we look at it through the critical lens of the red pill, the analysis gains another dimension. The metamorphosis of the butterfly can unconsciously symbolize the constant change of partners, the search for novelty, and the escape from rootedness and stability. That's why many social dynamics scholars point to this design as a frequent sign in women who have intensely lived the carousel. Authors like Rollo Tomassi, in The Rational Male, Chapter 10, pages 5 to 8, explore the concept of what hypergamy is and how it manifests in subtle ways. Although he doesn't talk directly about tattoos, the parallel is inevitable when we understand that the need to communicate status, freedom, and sexuality appears in various symbolic forms. The butterfly tattoo, then, fits perfectly into this interpretation. It's a symbol that the woman has already gone through or wants to go through phases of experimentation in a plurality of partners. Ask yourself, do you really believe that so many women would choose the exact same design just for aesthetics? Or is there an unconscious psychological pattern linked to the desire to express their phase of free flight, without ties and without commitments? The critical analysis leads us to see that the repetition of this symbol is not a coincidence, but a collective reflection of a socially validated behavior. If you have already noticed this in real life, comment below. Have you noticed how this design appears precisely on women who don't prioritize stable relationships but rather intense experiences? I want to know your opinion. When we analyze the phenomenon of tattoos under the gaze of psychology, we realize that they are not just body decorations. They function as true identity markers, signals that the person sends to the world about who they are, what they value, and what trajectory they wish to represent. In the case of the butterfly tattoo, the standard discourse is always the same: freedom, transformation, rebirth. But is this transformation really a search for evolution or just a rationalization to justify choices linked to the cycle of immediate pleasure? The red pill critique points out that the butterfly represents not only change but also instability. Think about it: a butterfly never stays in the same place. It lands, displays itself for a moment, but soon leaves for another flower. This behavior, when internalized as an identity symbol, suggests a mind that does not settle, that avoids rootedness and may always be in search of something new. It is no coincidence that many women who carry this tattoo report life stories marked by intense but short-lived experiences. Steven Pinker, in The Blank Slate, Chapter 7, pages 122 to 126, explains how cultural symbols and narratives shape individual behavior, even without full awareness. The woman who chooses the butterfly may not even verbalize it, but by carrying this symbol on her body, she internalizes and communicates the value of freedom and the multiplicity of experiences. When we cross this reading with the critical perspective of the red pill, we understand that this freedom is often the rationalization for the carousel. Rollo Tomassi also reminds us, in The Rational Male, Chapter 5, pages 91 to 95, that the feminine desire for novelty is an essential component of hypergamy. The butterfly symbol, therefore, is the aesthetic crystallization of this desire. It is not an arbitrary choice, but a culturally accepted reflection to express the idea of, I don't belong to anyone, I'm not tied down. Now I ask you, how many women with this tattoo have you seen building solid families and stable relationships, without a history of the carousel? How many of them, on the contrary, display this design as a kind of trophy of the sexual freedom they experienced in their most intense years? Reflect on this and let me know. Don't forget to leave your comment, because this debate is fundamental for us to understand how symbols shape and reveal female reality. By deepening this reflection, we realize that the butterfly tattoo carries a fascinating paradox. On the one hand, it presents itself as a delicate, feminine, and almost angelic symbol. On the other hand, it is precisely this apparent delicacy that hides one of the most provocative messages linked to the female behavior it represents: the willingness to experience a plurality of partners and experiences. The body becomes a showcase, and the tattooed butterfly functions as a kind of silent password, a mark that signals a disposition for instability. David Buss, in the book The Evolution of Desire, Chapter 12, pages 215 to 222, points out that women use visual and behavioral strategies to communicate fertility, availability, and sexual freedom. Although Buss does not specifically mention tattoos, his analysis fits almost perfectly into the interpretation of the butterfly. The mark on the body, especially in suggestive locations like the lower back or hip, reinforces the appeal of availability and novelty. It is a visual invitation, even if not verbalized. If we look at evolutionary psychology, the butterfly metaphor is even more revealing. The constant metamorphosis suggests the abandonment of old phases to embrace a new identity. And what would this identity be, if not that of the woman who does not get tied down, who breaks cycles, and who incessantly seeks validation in different forms? Jordan Peterson, in Maps of Meaning, Chapter 3, pages 144 to 151, describes how archetypal symbols shape personal narratives. The butterfly is an archetype of change, but when this archetype is tattooed on the female body, it is often appropriated as an aesthetic justification for what, deep down, is the mark of a cycle of multiple sexual experiences. Here we enter a central point of the red pill critique, the need to understand that social signs are not random. If so many women in different cultures choose the exact same design, it reveals that there is an unconscious common denominator, a collective pattern. The repetition of the butterfly tattoo is not a coincidence, but proof that the female psyche finds in this symbol an acceptable way to communicate sexual freedom without having to verbalize it. Rollo Tomassi, in The Rational Male, Chapter 8, pages 163 to 170, reminds us that women tend to rationalize choices through socially acceptable narratives that, in practice, hide different intentions. When a woman says she got a butterfly tattoo because it's delicate and pretty, it is necessary to look beyond that explanation. The critical analysis shows that, often, what is at stake is a hidden desire to affirm the carousel phase in a disguised way, but eternalized on the skin. Now, reflect with me. Is it really a coincidence that this design is almost always associated with women who have gone through intense phases of freedom and experimentation? You who are watching, have you noticed how this pattern repeats itself around you? Comment below your perception because this debate needs to be expanded. And stay with me, because the final revelation I'm going to bring in the next part is the most powerful of all, and it will completely change the way you see this symbol. We have reached the most important point of this analysis. The revelation that connects all the fragments and exposes what is really at stake when we talk about the butterfly tattoo as a sign of the carousel. So far, we have shown that symbols are never innocent, that psychology and red pill critique point to unconscious patterns that repeat on a collective scale. But what you may not have realized yet is the weight that this symbol carries not only in the present of the woman who flaunts it. What seems like a simple aesthetic choice can become a definitive mark of a phase of life that, in the eyes of society, and especially in the eyes of future partners, does not disappear with time. The butterfly tattoo eternalizes the carousel. Even when the woman decides to end her phase of sexual freedom and seek stability, the symbol on her body remains as a silent witness to her past choices. It is as if it says to every look, I have lived intensely, I have flown free, I have experimented. And here is the most powerful revelation. The butterfly tattoo is the unconscious way many women find to immortalize the phase in which they exercise the maximum of their hypergamy. While memories fade and stories can be hidden, the tattooed symbol on the body is permanent. It is material proof of what, to the critical eye of the red pill, is not just a drawing but an identity marker. Christopher Lasch, in The Culture of Narcissism, Chapter 4, pages 98 to 104, analyzes how contemporary society promotes the celebration of fleeting phases as if they were personal achievements. The butterfly tattoo fits exactly into this context, transforming the carousel phase into something different, worthy of aesthetic celebration, as if instability and the search for immediate pleasure were virtues. This explains why so many women defend the tattoo as a symbol of empowerment, when in fact it is the materialization of a logic of instability. But there is a hidden price to this. Attentive men, who know social dynamics through red pill critique, know how to decode this symbol. Many associate the butterfly tattoo with a history of multiple partners, brief relationships, and choices linked to pleasure, not to building something lasting. This interpretation, as harsh as it may seem, has direct consequences on the perception of value that a future partner may have of the woman. Now think, if the whole society understood this silent code, how many would still see the butterfly just as a drawing? How many men would accept the narrative of freedom without reflecting on what is really written there on the skin? That is why this content is so important. It opens your eyes to see beyond the obvious, to interpret symbols that, until then, were treated as innocent. Have you noticed women who carry this tattoo trying to rewrite their narrative in the future, saying they now want something serious? How do you see the difference between what they say and what their body already communicates on its own? Leave your thoughts in the comments because your participation is fundamental for us to expand this analysis. If you've watched this far, subscribe now to the Black Pill Femme channel, leave your like, comment, and share this video. If you can, make a donation to help the channel, links in the comments. This helps not only to strengthen the community but also to spread a critical view that few have the courage to expose. And don't leave yet, because here on the final screen, I'm going to leave 2 videos that connect directly to this theme. The first deepens other feminine symbols that reveal much more than they seem at first glance. The second exposes how evolutionary psychology explains hidden signals that many women use without realizing it. If you really want to deeply understand the dynamics of the red pill, under a critical analysis, these 2 contents will complete the puzzle. Remember, the butterfly tattoo is not just an aesthetic choice. It is a code, a password, a testament to the carousel. And understanding this is opening your eyes to a reality that many prefer to ignore.